Science test. There are 7 passages in this test. Each passage is followed by several questions. After reading a passage in the corresponding oval on your answer document, you may refer to the passages as often as necessary. You are not permitted to use a calculator on this test. Passage number 1. A catchment drainage basin is a geographical area that drains to a given point along a river. Geologists studied catchments to understand relationships between climate, the quantities of water flowing through the catchments, and the erosion of the landscape. Study number 1. 8 catchments of similar area in different locations were chosen for study. 3 with limestone bedrock, 2 with quartzite bedrock, and 3 with granite bedrock. The dissolved load, weathered material carried in solution by water, and the solid load, solid particles carried by water, were measured for each catchment in tons per square kilometer per year. The rate at which the landscape was being eroded in each catchment, in centimeters per 1,000 years, was also measured. The results are in Table 1. Study 2. Measurements were taken of the average annual air temperature in degrees Celsius and the total annual precipitation in centimeters within the 8 catchments. The results are in Table 2. Study 3. Geologists measured the discharge from each catchment. Discharge is the amount of water in cubic meters per second leaving a catchment. Annual precipitation from Study 2 was plotted against average discharge for the 8 catchments. The results are in Figure 1. Question 1. According to the information in Study 3, which of the following statements best describes the relationship between total annual precipitation and average discharge? A. As total annual precipitation increases, average discharge increases. B. As total annual precipitation increases, average discharge stays the same. C. As total annual precipitation increases, average discharge decreases. D. As total annual precipitation increases, average discharge increases, then decreases. Question 2. Which of the following figures best represents the relationship between erosion rate in limestone bedrock catchments and total annual precipitation? Question 3. If during a given year, catchment C has received 300 centimeters of precipitation, according to Study 3, the average discharge for catchment C would most likely have been A. Less than 4, B. Less than 4 and 8 meters cubed per second, C. Between 8 and 12, D. Over 12. Question 4. According to Study 2, which of the following statements best describes the relationship, if any, between average annual air temperature and total annual precipitation? F. As average annual air temperature increases, total annual precipitation increases. G. As average annual air temperature increases, total annual precipitation stays the same. H. As average annual air temperature increases, total annual precipitation decreases. J. There is no clear relationship between average annual air temperature and total annual precipitation. Question number 5. Dissolved load in a catchment is produced by chemical weathering, while solid load is produced by mechanical weathering. According to this information and the results of Study 1, which of the following statements about weathering is most likely true? A. Limestone is more susceptible to mechanical than to chemical weathering. B. Limestone is more susceptible to chemical than to mechanical weathering. C. Quartzite is more susceptible to chemical than to mechanical weathering. D. Quartzite is equally susceptible to chemical and to mechanical weathering. Question 6. According to the information in Studies 1 and 2, If 3 limestone-based catchments of similar area to those in Study 1 were studied in an area having a total annual precipitation less than 25 centimeters, which of the following predictions could be made about loads or erosion rates in those catchments? F. The erosion rates would be less than 1 centimeter per 1,000 year. G. The erosion rates would be greater than 2 centimeters 1,000 years. H. The dissolved load would be greater than 50 tons kilometers per year. J. The solid load would be between 4 and 6 tons. Passage 2. Life on Earth contains organic compounds, compounds containing carbon and other elements. The earliest compounds on Earth were inorganic. Scientists discuss 2 hypotheses about Earth's first organic compounds. Hydrothermal vent hypothesis. Organic molecules were first formed several billion years ago in numerous hydrothermal vents on the deep sea floor. These vents were openings in the sea floor that spew magna-heated water. Scientists estimated that water temperatures range from 700 degrees Celsius in the deepest part of a vent to 10 degrees Celsius at the top of a vent. Laboratory experiments have shown that temperature gradients, increases or decreases in temperature in relationship to distance, promote chemical reactions. This natural temperature gradient provided the optimum conditions for the following events. Inorganic molecules were heated in the deep part of the vents, creating organic molecules. Seawater circulating through the vents cooled and preserved these organic molecules, which were then deposited onto clay lining the top of the vents. The clay particles provided irregular surfaces where the organic molecules became embedded. The organic molecules eventually combined to first form polymers, long chains of organic molecules, and later living self-replicating cells. Outer space hypothesis. Organic molecules were brought to Earth by bodies from space. Craters on other planets show that the solar system has been bombarded with asteroids, comets, and meteoroids since its formation. A meteoroid that strikes Earth, was found to contain amino acids, components of protein, and parts of DNA, carbon-based molecules found in living cells. Some meteorites are up to 5% organic material. Studies have found that comets contain organic material. Microscopic interplanetary dust particles fall to Earth from space in large numbers and are up to 10% organic material. These 3 types of bodies brought organic molecules to Earth. In the deep oceans, several billion years ago, conditions were right for these organic molecules to combine to form polymers and eventually living self-replicating cells. Question 7. The hydrothermal vent hypothesis would be strengthened by finding that the chemical reactions that produce organic compounds occur most readily at temperatures A. Below 10 degrees Celsius, B. Between 10 degrees Celsius and 700 degrees Celsius, C. Between 700 degrees Celsius and 1,000 degrees Celsius, D. Above 1,000 degrees Celsius. Question 8. Based on the information in both hypotheses, which of the following was one of the first characteristics exhibited by living things on Earth? F. The ability to move. G. The ability to replicate. H. The ability to digest clay crystals. J. The ability to survive on land. 9. The scientists supporting both hypotheses would agree that life on Earth first began A. in space, B. in the oceans, C. on another planet, D, on land. Question number 10. The outer space hypothesis makes the assumption that billions of years ago, Earth was F, the only planet in the solar system with volcanoes, G, completely covered by oceans, H, bombarded by bodies from outer space, J, much colder than it is today. Question 12. Based on the information in both hypotheses, in order for life to have evolved on Earth, organic compounds had to first form F, RNA, G, DNA, H, polymers, J, clay particles. Question 13. It is estimated that 1,000 times as much collective mass of interplanetary dust particles landed on Earth as the collective mass of meteorites, comets, and asteroids that landed on Earth. Based on this information, which of the following generalizations would most likely be made by the supporters of the outer space hypothesis? A, only interplanetary dust particles brought organic molecules to Earth. B, only meteoroids brought organic molecules to Earth. C, most organic molecules were brought to Earth by interplanetary dust particles. D, most organic molecules were brought to Earth by asteroids. Passage 3. The three sets of graphs below represent the motion of three different motorbikes on a straight track. The top graph in each set shows the distance of the motorbike from the starting line versus elapsed time. The middle graph in each set shows the velocity of the motorbike versus elapsed time. The bottom graph in each set shows the acceleration of the motorbike, the rate at which the motorbike's velocity changes versus elapsed time. Question 14. According to the distance versus time graphs, which motorbike is or are not at the starting line at time equals 0? F, motorbike 1 only, G, motorbike 3 only, H, motorbikes 1 and 2 only, J, motorbikes 2 and 3 only. Question 15. The graphs in set 2 could also represent which of the following descriptions of the motion of a car traveling on a street? A car travels at a constant velocity for a period of time, then decreases in velocity until it reaches a specific velocity and continues traveling at that velocity. B, a car is stopped along a curb. It then increases in velocity until it reaches a specific velocity and continues to travel at that velocity. C, a car travels at a constant velocity for a period of time, then increases in velocity until it reaches a specific velocity and continues traveling at that velocity. D, a car is stopped at an intersection. It then increases in velocity until it reaches a specific velocity, then immediately decreases in velocity to come to a second stop. Question 16. In the acceleration versus time graphs for the motorbikes, positive acceleration values are graphed above the horizontal time axis, and negative acceleration values are graphed below the horizontal axis. The velocity of the motorbike with negative acceleration, F, is 0, G is constant, H decreases, J increases. Question 17. When a motorbike travels forward on the track, it has positive velocity. If it were to travel in reverse, it would have negative velocity. Which of the following descriptions of motion would result in a velocity versus time graph with both positive and negative velocity values. A baseball is tossed back and forth between two people. B, a boulder falls off a cliff to the ground. C, a sandbag is passed from person to person in a line. D, a balloon is released and floats to the ceiling. 18. The statement, if an object's acceleration is 0 during a time period, then the object's velocity is 0 during that period, is contradicted by which segment of the graphs in set 3? F, point A to point B only. G, point A to point C only. H, point B to point C only. J, point C to point D only. Passage 4. Table 1 lists data about metal elements arranged in order of increasing atomic number, the number of protons contained in one atom. The melting point is the temperature at which a solid metal liquefies. An electrically neutral atom has an equal number of protons, positively charged particles, and electrons, negatively charged particles. A positive ion is formed when an atom loses one or more electrons. The first ionization energy is the energy that removes one electron from the neutral atom to form a +1 ion. The atomic radius and ionic radius indicate the size of the neutral atom and of the +2 ion, respectively. Question 19. When iron ore is reacted with coke and limestone at a high temperature, iron is produced in its molten liquid state. At which of the following temperatures can the iron be drained or poured out of the reactor? A, 759 degrees Celsius. B, 1,244 degrees Celsius. C, 1,495 degrees Celsius. D, 1,540 degrees Celsius. Question 20. Which of the following statements best describes the relationship, if any, between the atomic number and the melting pot for the metals in Table 1? As the atomic number increases, the melting point, F, increases, G decreases, H decreases and then increases, J shows no relationship to atomic number. Question 21. Which element would require the least amount of energy to form a +1 ion? A, Sc, B, Ti, C, V, D, Cr. Question 22. For the metals listed in Table 1, which of the following statements best describes the relationship between atomic radius and ionic radius? For any element, the F, atom is larger than its positive ion. G, atom is smaller than its positive ion. H, size of the atom and its positive ion increases with the melting point. J, size of the atom and its positive ion increases with the ionization energy. Question 23. The second ionization energy is the energy needed to remove one electron from the +1 ion. For Zn, this energy is 1,733. How much energy is required to change the neutral Zn atom into its +2 ion? A, 906. B, 1,733. C, 1,733 minus 906. D, 1,733 plus 906. Passage 5. Seeds from 100 plants of an annual wildflower species were collected and their mass weight was determined. The seeds were divided into 3 groups. One group was planted in pots in a greenhouse. The second group was planted in meadow sites that has been cleared of vegetation. The third group was planted in meadow sites that had not been cleared of vegetation. The resultant plants were dried after flowering. Plants and seeds were weighed separately. Figure 2 shows the mass of the plants. Question 24. According to Figure 1, the largest percentage of seeds collected had masses between F 0.1 and 0.5, G 0.6 and 1, H 1.1 and 1.5, J 1.6 and 2. Question 25. It was hypothesized that seeds under 0.5 did not contain enough stored nutrients to produce plants under any conditions. The data in which the following study cites in Figure 2 disprove this hypothesis. A, the greenhouse pots only. B, the unclear meadow sites only. C, the greenhouse pots and the cleared meadow sites only. D, the cleared meadow sites and the uncleared meadow sites only. Question 26. According to Figure 3, the average mass of the seeds produced by plants grown in the greenhouse from 2 milligrams parent seeds was approximately F 1.6, G 1.9, H 2.4, J 2.9. Question 27. If one were to compare the masses of plants for a given parent seed mass as shown in Figure 2, one would conclude that the mass of the plants was greatest for plants grown in the A, cleared meadow sites and was smallest for plants grown in the uncleared meadow sites, B, cleared meadow sites and was smallest for plants grown in the greenhouse, C, greenhouse pots and was smallest for plants grown in the uncleared meadow sites, D, greenhouse pots and was smallest for plants grown in the cleared meadow sites. Question 28. Assume that 0.9 milligram seed of this wildflower species was planted in an uncleared site. What would one most likely observe according to Figures 2 and 3? F, the plant would grow but would not produce seeds. G, the plant would grow and produce a large number of small seeds only. H, the plant would grow and produce a small number of very large seeds only. J, the plant would grow and produce seeds in a variety of masses. Passage 6. Plants produce food by hypothesis summarized as follows. Light can be described by a wavelength, measured here in nanometers. Each color of the rainbow has its own range of wavelengths. Plants contain cells with colored pigments that absorb various wavelengths of light. Researchers conducted three studies to examine the role of light's wavelengths in plant pigments on photosynthesis. Study 1. A prism was used to shine a rainbow of colors on living algae. Bacteria that require oxygen for survival were added to the algae. Most of the bacteria were found around the region of algae exposed to red and orange light. A smaller number were found in the blue light region, and a few were also found in other regions. Study 2. The effect of different colors of light on photosynthesis was tested by exposing groups of bean plants to light on specific wavelengths. Sugar production of each group of plants was measured and used as an estimate of the rate of photosynthesis at each wavelength. Figure 1 shows the action spectrum of photosynthesis, which is the effect of light of different wavelengths on photosynthesis. Study 3. Solutions of 3 different photosynthetic pigments isolated from plant cells were each exposed to light of a specific wavelength. Figure 2 shows the absorbic spectrum, which is the percentage light absorbance of various wavelengths for each pigment. Question 29. According to the results of Study 2, if plants are exposed to only a narrow range of wavelengths of light, which of the following ranges would produce the greatest rate of photosynthesis? A. 440 to 460. B. 490 to 510. C. 540 to 560. D. 590 to 610. Question 30. In Study 1, the bacteria probably clustered around the photosynthesizing algae in areas where the algae were releasing the most F. Oxygen, G. Light, H. Carbon dioxide, J. Energy. Question 31. The results from which of the studies, if any, support the conclusion that as the intensity of light increases, photosynthetic activity increases? A. Study 1 only. B. Study 3 only. C. Studies 1 and 2 only. D. None of the studies support this conclusion. Question 32. The color of a substance results from the wavelength of light that it does not absorb. According to the results of Study 3, one would predict that the color of carotenoids would most likely be F. Blue-green, G. Yellow-orange, H. Violet, J. Blue. Question 33. Many stores sell blue or blue-purple grow lights for growing plants indoors. According to the results of Study 1, would this color of light be better than other colors to promote photosynthesis? A. Yes, since more bacteria were found in the blue region than in the other regions. B. Yes, since the grow lights emitted all colors except blue, which inhibits photosynthesis. C. No, since bacteria that were found in regions other than the blue region indicated lack of oxygen. Or D. No, since more bacteria were found in the red and orange regions than in the blue regions. Question 34. The activities of living systems are often affected by temperature. Which of the studies most likely required that the living material tested be exposed to the same temperature each time it was performed? F. Study 1 only. G. Study 2 only. H. Study 3 only. J. Studies 1 and 2. Passage 7. Solutions containing the purple permanganate ion absorb visible light. The amount of light absorbed can be measured by a spectrometer. White visible light contains light of all colors, and each color is characterized by its wavelength. When light passes through a colored solution, only certain colors or wavelengths are absorbed. The absorbance measured varies with each wavelength and also depends on the amount of MnO4 present in the solution. Absorbance readings are always adjusted for the absorbance of the blank. A solution prepared in the same way as the test solution, except it does not contain MnO4. Experiment 1. 4 standard solutions containing known concentrations of MnO4, were prepared by dissolving a permanganate compound in acid. They were analyzed by a spectrometer at a wavelength of 530 nanometers. The results are found in Figure 1. Experiment 2. 5 kinds of steel pine, A through E, all containing 0.2 to 2% of manganese metal, were obtained. Equal sections of each pipe were cut and their masses determined. The samples were dissolved in acid to react with the metal to form colorless manganese ion. An oxidant was added to chemically react with the Mn and convert it to MnO4. These solutions were then diluted with water to a total volume of 1 liter. The resulting test solutions were analyzed at the same wavelength used in experiment 1. The results are in table 1. A blank was prepared using a steel pipe containing no Mn and analyzed in the same manner. The blank has an absorbance of 0.015. Question 35. Which of the following is the sequence of steps that was used to produce the test solutions for experiment 2? A. Steel pipe sample plus water plus acid plus oxidant to test solution. B. Steel pipe sample plus acid plus water plus oxidant to test solution. C. Steel pipe sample plus water plus oxidant plus acid to test solution. D. Steel pipe sample plus acid plus oxidant plus water to test solution. Question 36. Why did the chemist treat the test solutions in experiment 2 with oxidant before the test solutions were analyzed, although the standard solutions prepared in experiment 1 were treated only with acid? F. The Mn in the test solution would not dissolve in acid. G. The Mn in the test solution could not be compared to the standard solutions used. It was converted to MnO4. H. The Ma in the test solutions could not be compared to the standard solutions unless it was converted to Mn. J. The Mn in the standard solutions would dissolve only in acid. Question 37. If not enough oxidant is added to convert to the Mn to MnO4 in experiment 2, how would the value of the absorbance be affected? The value of the absorbance would be A. The same as if all Mn is converted because the same mass of Mn is present. B. The same as if the Mn is converted because the wavelength is the same. C. Less than all the Mn is converted. D. Greater than if all the Mn is converted. Question 38. According to experiment 2, which steel pipe has the highest content of Mn? F. Pipe A. G. Pipe B. H. Pipe C. J. Pipe D. Question 39. A comparison of the absorbance readings obtained in experiment 2 with the information in figure 1 suggests that the concentration of Mn of sample D is closest to which of the following values? A. 0.5, B. 0.73, C. 1.10, D. 2.25. Question 40. Copper forms a blue solution of Cu ions when dissolved in acid. Blue solutions absorb light in 675 nanometers. What changes in procedure would be necessary if a metal pipe containing Cu rather than Mn was analyzed using a spectrometer? F, the spectrometer would be set at 500 nanometers for the standard solutions containing Cu ions and for the metal pipe test solution. G, the spectrometer would be set at 530 nanometers for the standard solutions containing Cu ions and at 675 nanometers for the metal pipe test solution. H, the spectrometer would be set at 675 nanometers for the standard solutions containing Cu ions and at 530 nanometers for the metal pipe test solution. J, the spectrometer would be set at 675 nanometers for the standard solutions containing Cu ions and for the metal pipe test solution. This is the end of test 4. Do not return to any other test.